Okay, hello and welcome back to Spirit Lounge. Just making sure my microphone's working okay. Yes, it is. Welcome to the continuing journey through the Buddhist Pali, which I hope you're enjoying thus far. So today we're going to be starting and embarking upon a new Nikaya. It's the next one. It's the Majjhima Nikaya. And I'll just share the screen now and we'll go straight into some more information as to what that is. Okay, the Majjhima Nikaya, this is still part of the Sutta Pitaka, and it's split into various Pannasas, which are wider sections, and they can in turn have subsection Vagas, and within those sub-Vagas they have subsection Suttas as well. So, as again, the Tipitaka, the Sutta Pitaka contains all the teachings, in other words. So what we're going through here is the Sutta Pitaka, which is the teachings. And it's containing into various collections. These collections are Nikayas. We've already gone through the Digha Nikaya, and now we're going to be going through today on through a series of about 3 videos, the Majjhima Nikaya. And we're going to subsequently the other 3 afterwards, which is the Samyutta, the Anguttara, and the Kuddaka Nikaya. It contains everything we have about the Buddhist teaching. This is the original writings of the Buddhist teaching. So this is the original canon. And it has 3 main sections, which is the Sutta, and the Abhidhamma, and the Vinyana Pitaka. And we're going to go through those also. The Suttas are building blocks of Vagas, which are basically are building blocks of the teachings. They're like building blocks of a wall, which are the equivalent to sermons or homilies and doctrines and discourses, lectures, writings from mainly the Buddha or stories around the Buddha. Okay, and as we mentioned, the Sutta has got many sections, and these are Nikayas, and the Majjhima Nikaya is a collection of Nikaya means collection, and Majjhima of medium length, and Majjhima is sermons and discourses of the Buddha, and it's there's 3 major sections in this, which we'll be going through, called the Pannasas. Okay, the first one is the Mula Pannasa, and the first Vaga is the Mala Pariyaya Vaga. And Mula Pariyaya Sutta is we go into this first building block. It says, on the noble source and true nature of consciousness and thoughts of worldly attachment, on craving for pleasure as the root of all suffering, leading to birth and decay. So you can see that what it's saying is, I agree with this, a noble source. The source cannot be noble, it's only ever felt. And even through feeling, it can never be truly felt. It can only be starting to understand whilst embody the immensity of the all itself. What's beyond the physical 3rd dimensional experience of life that we have. And the true nature of, I won't even call it consciousness, because as I mentioned before, it's either conscious and non-conscious. Consciousness kind of gives, if we say it's an awareness, then yeah, you're at a point of you're an awareness, but you're awareness within everything, because you are aware, because you are everything. There actually is no boundary to you. So consciousness actually, for me, it implies a boundary to it. There's some definition, but when you're away from body, there is no definition to you. You're also on a noble aspect of what is a noble source and fractal of a noble source, and our divine Father and origin. And it just thoughts of worldly attachment and on craving as a pleasure of root. Well, this will be a repeating passage and a repeating theme through all of this Buddhist text. It's talking about worldly attachment to everything that exists within the physical human experience and realm. And this is what it's trying to teach. The Buddhist doctrine, or the Pali and the Canon, is constantly trying to teach us to move away from the attachment of worldly things to this world, and also think and perceive every action, word, thought, and intention and perception and not be attached to the things of this world, and see this world beyond it. Step away and out from the world and look upon the world from a different vantage point, from the vantage point of grace itself, and therefore then drive your actions, words, thoughts and intentions to make your contribution of change, but also your movement away from craving, movement away from attachment, and therefore the movement away from the third dimensional human realm, unless of course you're attached to the human realm through choice. The Subhasava Sutta on passion and its extinguishment. Again, this is talking about craving, pleasures. The 7 methods for the extinguishment of passion: by examination, by first of all examining ourselves and what we have as attachments and pleasures and cravings to the third dimensional realm, and self-control, by utilitarian practical use, by either sufferance or suffering that which we're attached to, and therefore going through examination, self-control, by avoidance, by removing them, those attachments, or by developing qualities and cultivating the 8 Noble Path. The Dhammadayada Sutta is on the benefits of accepting and following the Buddha's doctrine, on the praiseworthiness of teachers with diligent followers, on the Middle's Way, which is called the Noble Eightfold Path, seeking Nibbana and eradicating the 3 great evils. And it describes those 3 great evils as ill will to oneself, remember, not just to others, it's also ill will to self, ignorance and greed. Also there are many more, but it's describing those 3 main great evils. It also describes the vileness of anger, of malevolence, envy, miserliness, hypocrisy and deceit. Well, all of those exist in very fruitful nature in the human realm, do they not? They exist in corporations, they exist in politics, they exist in ego, in every aspect of where ego is reflected, and the strength of ego, the thickness of ego reflects all of this. The attachment to and craving of the material realm also is the miserliness of wealth, of this or continual attainment of it, but also the miserliness of it once it's attained by constant accumulation and holding very, very close and tight to that, as being something that one finds precious and so valued above all things that you hold it so close and become miserly with it. It becomes an attachment, it becomes a craving. Actually, this is what will attach you to the third realm, the third dimension of the human loss. The Bharava Sutta on braving the fears and dreads of forest life. I put this in because we don't have forest life anymore. We don't live in those times where, as it said in the Upanishads, where there were 3 passages to an adult fulfilling the cycle of life. One was to grow up and to learn and to become a student. Second was to become a family man, raise a family, and once that family has been done, is to leave the family, leave everything behind, and go into forest life for the remainder of life to reach Nibbana or enlightenment through isolation, meditation, allowing the divine all and to allow knowing to unfold. And this is what he's talking about. It's braving the fears and dreads of forest life. I would adapt this to modern life, and this is braving the fears and dreads of the spiritual path. The spiritual path is not a new age one. The spiritual path is an internal one. It's a difficult one because you are confronting yourself, but also your internal self will change, and you'll be driven to have more faith in that which is unseen and that which you cannot control by allowing grace to guide you through what sometimes can be difficult times. And I've had to do that myself many times, and actually in more recent times also, which actually puts a test to me as well in my own letting go and giving to, and just opening my arms up to and surrendering to grace. The Anangana Sutta, on the 4 types of people inhabiting the world. Now this is fairly subjective, so it's not really objective list, but it's subjective, but we may have different view, and it kind of complicates it. So it says the impure who have absolutely no idea that they are impure. This is true. You know, you could say those who live on the left, move towards the left, the darker, the material, the matter being, even the satanic and the demonic, they don't feel they're impure because they are worshipping another god. They're worshipping another deity. They're worshipping another idea. They're worshipping another thought. And for them, they're not impure. It is us, the others, who are impure. So they have no idea that are impure because they're following something that they've given themselves unto, and that which they follow has taken attachment to them, in actual fact. So they've chosen their God, and therefore their God has undertaken an attachment to them. Impure who know they are impure. There are those who are just outright impure and evil, even in action, word, thought, and intention, in every way. Pure who don't know they are pure, and pure who know they are pure. Those are just generally pure who do not know they are pure. Most people in this world, I think, are of this ilk. The world is mainly full of good people, but mainly because, and the reason that we don't see them this way is because of naivety, overwhelming trust, giving of their power to others. We've mentioned this in many videos before, in other passages, in other books, in other scriptures we've gone through. Humanity is too trusting, it's naive, it's lost because of that. It's given away the divine to itself, to its ego, to its technology, to other human beings. It worships other human beings above the all itself. That's why they are within their hearts also good. So therefore, in some way we can say pure. I would say they do not know they are pure because they are lost. They are lost into the world itself. It's not good enough just to mean well. When ultimately, when you're lost and one is directing our attention to the different wrong places, those to places we should not, these action, words, thoughts, and decisions will be guided by that, and therefore unwise. And pure who know they are pure. I won't take this. This would, if you put yourself in this place, I would put those seeking in this place. We are never going to be pure. These are seekers to evolve and expand out, remove this attachment, this craving that the Buddha talks about, particularly in this context. Nikaya Sutta, on living virtuously, on the hazards of worldly cravings, again it's repeated, grow stronger in right conduct, seeing danger in small lapses of virtue and small failures. Not quite correct. We're always going to have lapses in virtue. We're always going to have lapses in what it calls failures. We're always going to have lapses in our journey. We're not here to be perfect. So there's no danger in it. It's the awareness and perception and cognizance of the frequency of those lapses may mean that we need to sit and contemplate why these lapses are occurring so often, and whether we need to change our practice or our practice needs to be tweaked, or is it transformative enough, or are we just doing it as a virtuous act? Okay, Vatupama Sutta, on woe occurring to the impure heart and happiness accruing to the pure heart. Well, this is obvious. This is talking about karma. This is talking about the cycle of energy. If you give out woe, if you give out negative action, words, thoughts, and intention, this is what ultimately, karmically, remember, karmically is infinite. It can cycle round at any point. And what we see as those with power and fame and fortune seem to be constantly negative, but living lives from our vantage points of being of opulence and privilege. Don't always remember this karma doesn't have to present itself in material ways. It can also be in spiritual and transcendental ways. The ability of famous rivers to purify the hearts of bathers. The Indus River was another one, was one of those. Buddha's doctrine to purify the heart. Saleka Sutta, on correct views and wrong views regarding the self, which is atta, and the universe, which is loko. Remember the locos? I don't think we've gone through the locos within the Hinduism or Vedic, but they have different locos of vibration, places, universal frequency. In other words, they call them lokas, and we'll go through those at some point. But it's interesting. It's very similar named in the Buddhist text. Eradicating impurity through meditation, abstaining from wrong thought, words, and deeds. On the Samyutta Sutta, on what right view is, meaning of decay, death and birth, on the Noble Eightfold Path. Again, these paths, the Fourfold, Eightfold, and so on, they repeat themselves, and we'll be going through those later. Towards the end of this, we'll be recapping what all of these are again. Because even I don't remember them all as we go through this. The Satipatthana Sutta, on the necessity of mindfulness to purification. Attainment of Nibbana, on the Four Noble Truths. So on the necessity of mindfulness to purification. So this is really talking about being aware of our journey, making it a transformative act, something we are incorporating and integrating in every action, word, thought, and intention. How we gracefully walk through life itself, and walk and jump and walk and step onto different stones along the other side of the river. This is mindfulness, staying at peace and calm, and seeking strength from grace itself, and when we need it, and keeping that conversation open, both in the heard vocal voice and also the internal discourse. Okay, and the next Vaga is the Sahanada Vaga. And the Kula Sihanada Sutta is on refuting the claims of heretics, on one goal of true religious doctrine, on the false doctrines regarding eternity and annihilation. The four attachments are pleasure, ideas, deeds, and soul theories and craving. So even as he's talking about the one goal of true religious doctrine, well, the one goal of true religious doctrine in terms of the Buddhist text, is releasing craving, attachment, and ultimately the cycle of rebirth. The false doctrine regarding eternity and annihilation, well, it's talking about these false doctrines that there is nothing before, nothing after, the nihilist view, and that there is no eternity. And the four attachments, of course, there are many. It also talks about craving and those other attachments. But it talks about pleasures, attachment to pleasures, attachment to ideas, ideas being thoughts of materialism, deeds, actions, the physical actions, being attached to physical movements, touch, taste, sound, all of these things, and theories of the soul, i.e. must be other metaphysical doctrines, because within the within the Buddhist text, it's clear that it wasn't really keen on talking about metaphysical aspects, and obviously craving for all of these things. Okay, the Masi Hananda Sutta, on the 10 powers of the Buddha. The power of knowing what is true and what is not. This is something we'll all cultivate. This is not saying we will always know what is true and what is not, but we'll move beyond mind and move beyond towards spiritual, into divine perception, I'm trying to say. We'll perceive what is true and what is not in this world. So we make wise decisions. We start to become knowing. Divine knowing comes from this. The power of knowing karmic causality at work in the lives of all beings throughout past, present, and future, that is self-explanatory. The power of knowing all stages of concentration, emancipation, and meditation. Emancipation is the release. The power of knowing the conditions of life of all people. This is also understanding that, for me, the lives of others are either through circumstance and then sometimes through continual circumstance. People get stuck in ruts. That really one size doesn't always fit all in a rule, but there's a purpose and also a causality to why people find themselves in the situations that they do. The power of judging all people's levels of understanding, the power of discerning the superiority or inferiority of all people's capacity. Yep, this is discerning. This is also referring to further in this text. It talks about understanding who to teach, who not to teach, who can progress, who cannot progress, who is progressing fast enough, who is ready for advanced teaching, who is staying on a particular stone longer because they need to. And this is talking about that. They're talking about the capacity to expand beyond this realm. The power of knowing the effects of all people's actions. So this is karmically, causality. The power of remembering past lifetimes. We can all kind of remember them. I don't. I've had to go into connect with other people to do that. But you can through advanced meditation. The power of knowing when each person will be born and will die, and in what realm that person will be reborn. This is possible by some people, but it's also written in some other places, like the nadis tend to have. It's amazing where these nadis are coming from. They seem to have the lives of past, present, and future lives written on leaf called nadis. A lot of them are fraudulent, so it's hard to find real ones. But this is also being pulled together by mystics. The power of eradicating all illusions. Some explanation of the 10 powers give different order or differ slightly in content. So eradicating illusions, well, there's many illusions in the physical world, but there's also many illusions presented to us by false doctrines of the non-physical realm of the all itself. Okay, the 4 assurances of the Buddha. If there is a next life after death, and if there are retributions of actions rightly and wrongly done, he or she does not have to worry about it because he or she will have a good destination then. This is the first assurance. So this is talking about if you follow Buddha's doctrine, these are the assurances that one will achieve. So this is talking about not becoming a returner or a second returner aspect, because one is evolving past the cycle of rebirth. If there is no next life, so this is talking about if you are a returner and you follow it correctly, then be assured that you'll have a good rebirth and good destination. If there is no next life and there is no retributions for actions, this is called a non-returner. Also, he or she does not have to worry about it because he or she lived a good life here and now. This is the second assurance. If he does evil unconsciously without intending to harm anyone, still she does not have to worry because suffering will not touch him. This is the third assurance. Well, there will be a returning, obviously, in this, but it's very similar to the first one. If he or she does not do evil, even unknowingly, she is then pure in both respects, action and intention. Therefore, she will not be touched by suffering. This is the fourth assurance. Evil, as we call it, is always based, and karma is always based and always will be rooted in intention. Not the manifestation of it through a thought, and not the manifestation through an act. It's the intention. If you intend, whatever you intend cannot be hidden by a word, cannot be hidden by an act. And so you're the source of that. And therefore the karma will always be bound to the one who puts in the intention behind it, regardless how it's perceived in its manifestation. This is why this false doctrine of those who follow dark practices believe that if they tell people they're going to do bad things to them and they don't do anything about it, and then they execute that negative thing against those people and thus they suffer, then the karma is in on them, is an absolute fool's doctrine. It is not true, it will never be true. Again, this is for those who are lost and don't understand that they're impure. The 5 fates after death, 5 or 6 possible forms that rebirth can take. These are the highest to the lowest: gods, demigods, human, animal, hungry ghost, and hell creature. I'm not a supporter of this kind of doctrine, where if you are good, then you become a god. If you are less good, then you become demigod. And if you are attached, you become human. If you're really bad, you become an animal. A hungry ghost is either a non-spiritual form or someone within human form who is completely and eternally attached to the physical accumulation of things, never satisfied, and a hell creature becoming some demonic being. Astral demonic beings exist. Hungry ghosts exist in non-form and form. Animals, of course, human. There are many false, I call demigods, are false gods. There's only one God with the capital G. It's called the All itself, and that is Source and our divine origin, Father. That is the one that you should be seeking, and only that one. You don't evolve into something lesser in capacity than the vessel you're already in. There's no purpose to it. You can become lesser in terms of your expression of soul, but you'll not be going into a lesser form. What will happen is you'll go into the same form, and your life experience will be determined by the enveloping garment of your own soul. But you don't go into lesser forms. This actually is something that you will impose upon yourself. If you believe it thus strongly enough, you may manifest this for yourself. Okay, the Madhukakananda Sutta, I hope I pronounced that correctly, on the wandering ascetics falsely claiming Buddha's doctrine, having false knowledge of ascetics, the false knowledge of ascetics as being recluses and also the Brahmin caste, Buddha's wisdom existing only within the teachings of the Buddha. So this is talking about during the time of the Buddha, there were many ascetics who travelled testifying to be preaching Buddha's doctrine, Buddha's philosophy, Buddha's teachings. And so did the Brahmin caste, those who were born in the Brahmin caste, those who thought they were better than others through Brahmin caste. They also were preaching and teaching what they were saying were Buddha's doctrines, or using Buddha's doctrines in their own, and creating their own, what Buddha would call false knowledge of ascetics, wandering around and creating their own philosophy and doctrines, and followers, of course. Okay, the Kula Kuddaka Sutta, I'm not going to try to say that one again, on the relationship between ill will, ignorance and greed, and moral corruption and suffering. The futility of severe self-mortification to atone for past evil deeds. The first part of this passage is clear. There's the relationship between all of these things. If you have one, you often will probably have the other, and they will all lead to suffering of some kind from a spiritual sense. They may not always lead to perceived physical suffering. Remember, there are many in this world who are full of moral corruption and greed, ignorance of something greater, and have ill will and woe towards others, but are living opulent, powerful, rich-filled material lives. Politicians, people, leaders, the elites, or just name it. It goes on and on and on. But they will suffer in terms of transcendentally, and this is the real hell that they will be creating. The futility of severe self-mortification. Yeah, this is self-flogging, mortification, living severe, austere lives, and believing that just doing that, of suffering physically, is some way of atoning for past deeds. This is not the case. It's the strongest spiritual being within ourselves is one who is walking the path of grace, but surrounded by brutal duality of the real world. This is true movement to Nibbana. Self-mortification is something that, if someone asks you to do this, then you may want to question who you're following and why. The Anumana Sutta on the 5 mental thorns: doubting Buddha, obviously doubting his teachings and Buddha's teachings and philosophy and doctrine, doubting Buddha's teachings, doubting the Buddhist community, doubting right conduct, and just doubting generally, doubting right conduct, thought and meditation, and harboring negative feelings. Well, this would be the case, I think, for any philosophy. And also doubting oneself, doubting grace itself, overrides all of these things. The five fetters, well, the five fetters are being that which is, the fetters are things that hold us down. Fetters are things that binds. Fetters are binds, chains, if you like, negative aspects that keep us locked down. Worldly desires, worldly possessions. Oh, this is the attachment and craving for them. Remember, worldly desires, worldly possessions, the concept of self, excessive eating and sleeping. Well, I do like to sleep, have my 8 hours. Buddha's teaching to only attain heavenly treasure. What does this mean, heavenly treasure? Well, it could be material treasure, but it could also be, I suppose, being egotistical in one's spiritual movement upward. Egotistical spiritual transcendentalism. 15 elements of robust character. Eliminating the 5 mental thorns, which are those doubting ones, the 5 fetters, which we've just gone through, the 4 powers of the mind, cultivating those, which is purpose, will, thought, and study, and strenuous effort. This is persistence and faith, in other words, aids in attainment of Nibbana. Look to the Vitta Kasanthana Sutta. On ending unwholesome thoughts and generation of wholesome thoughts, the 5 methods: diverting the mind, analyzing the dangerous consequences of negative thoughts, ignoring negative thoughts, and dispelling negative thoughts. So this is talking about practices that we can bring into our passage and journey. And if we persistently follow these, then it will help us towards attaining that state of being whilst going through and walking along and stepping along the stones to the other side of the river. Okay, the next Vaga, which is the Opama Vaga. Okay, this one is the Kakakupama Sutta, on rejecting everyday impulses and being full of love and void of hate. On remaining calm in the face of the 5 ways of speaking, in season and out of season, truthfully and falsely. So you can be in spirit or not in spirit. This is season. Speaking truthfully and falsely. Being mild in your manner or harsh. Being usefully or uselessly in word. With love and or with hate. On controlling the mind during difficult times. On enfolding the world or with thoughts of loving kindness. Well, this is a very good passage, and I think it speaks for itself. The Alaga Dupama Sutta. Danger if misunderstanding the Buddha's teachings, externally non-existent and internally non-existent, on impermanence, unmoved by either criticism or praise. So this is really talking about understanding the teaching, where it's saying that we are, I like this, internally and externally non-existent. This is talking about us being totally of not, of immeasurable presence. We don't exist internally, we don't exist externally, we just are. We are an isness. As I said, there is not even consciousness or non-consciousness. We are we are everywhere in all things, in truth and reality, because we are the all in a fractal sense of it. So therefore there's no boundary. So we cannot exist internal or exist external, because we are greater than both. Okay, this is a repeat of the passage earlier, so we'll skip that. The Vamika Sutta is talking about on the impermanence of the body. Buddha explaining the anthill symbolizes the body. The smoke by night symbolizes thought. Flames by day symbolizes words and actions. The Brahmin symbolizes an enlightened being. The sage symbolizes effort. The bar is ignorance. The frog is passion and anger. The forked passage is doubt. The strainer are 5 hindrances of passion, ill will, indolence, anxiety and doubt. The turtle is clinging to worldly things. The meat cleaver is the pleasure of the 5 senses, and meat is the passion and delight. The cobra is extinguished. It represents extinguished all desires. So he's using some metaphor, some animals as metaphor for aspects of the impermanence, and explaining the body and the passage towards loss and the passage towards non-loss. The Ratha Vineta Sutta, on attaining Nibbana as the purpose of the holy life. Nibbana is the purpose and obviously the only end to a practice, but the journey at the end is the understanding and full integration of being into grace itself, into the vibration of spirit. Remember, the spirit is the Holy Land. Your soul is your garment, is your vibration, your frequency, what you are, what you've decided to emit. This is your garment. This garment must reflect the vibrant frequency of the all itself, which is the spirit, the breath of life, the spirit inside everything. Nivapa Sutta. 4 meditative ecstasies are called yanas. The first is being aloof from desire, so being detached and non-attachment from desire. The second is cut off from desires and of the peaceful heart, a non-lustful, and a heart. A peaceful heart is one which is calm and seeking and having a continual discourses with grace. The third is being happy, mindful, and at peace with everything. The fourth has a state beyond pleasant and unpleasant and has perfect mindfulness. And the final is elimination of all desires. You can see this as a ladder. You can see this as a progression. So in first of all, it's talking about being indifferent to desires. And then second, being completely cut off from them, not having these desires, not because you're forcing them down, it's because they've naturally dispelled away from you and you become more peaceful with self and away from the desire-driven life. The third, it brings natural peaceful and contentment and harmony and mindful happiness. Fourth is you start to move transcendentally beyond the pleasant and unpleasant. You don't really notice it. There is a blissful aspect and walk of life. And the final is elimination of all desires in terms of attachment, clinging, and in this case, nibbana and release from the cycle of rebirth. Look, the Pasarasi Sutta. Buddha's renunciation of the world in his spiritual quest, the doctrine of Alara Kalama and the plane of nothingness, the doctrine of Uddaka Ramaputta, the plane of neither perception nor non-perception. On Buddha's turning of the wheel of Dhamma, Dhamma is knowing, teachings, turning the wheel of knowing, unveiling knowing, and we've talked about this many times. The passage towards grace is the unveiling of knowing, the unveiling of self, the unveiling of the all. This is the wheel of Dhamma, leading to Nibbana, releasing the wheel of reincarnation. The renunciation of the world itself in terms of matter, of material attachment and craving, and the plane of nothingness. And these are the disciples of Buddha, Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta, and had their own doctrines of the plane of nothingness and perception or non-perception. Well, this is describing the same thing. They're just calling it something else. They're calling it different things, but it's the same thing. Non-perception and perception, what is this? This is non-being on being. This is non-consciousness and all consciousness beyond all of these things. Nothingness is what I've always described. It is everything in nothing. We are manifesting through microsecond thought, but we are in a realm of complete manifestation from what within it is pure presence. We don't feel there is nothing because we are everything within it. So there's everything within nothing. It's actually hard to describe because, as I said, the understanding and knowing what the all truly is unfathomable to us while we're in form or even in this universe itself. It's only when we're in and expanding beyond into grace, out of body, that we'll truly understand this. The Kula Hathi Padubhama Sutta. On sound doctrine, on renouncing the world, the code of virtue, the 5 hindrances, removing those, passion, ill will, indolence, which is avoidance of goodness, anxiety and doubt. The Mahahatipadopama Sutta, nature of the first aggregate, which is called skanda, which is form being composed of earth, water, fire and air. This is the body itself. I don't really espouse to this that we are these earth, water, fire and air. This is just the physical nature of the vessel we're in, but our true nature is obviously spirit. The Kula Sarupama Sutta, we shouldn't attach to our physical vessels, nor should we be more concerned with this constant question humanity asks itself: who made us? Where did we come from? What is we? We need to move away from this we. Who made us? Well, nobody made us. This body is irrelevant. Who cares who made the body? It doesn't matter. Where did we come from is the attachment to understanding where the physical vessel comes from. We should be concerned first and foremost, where is our soul transcending to the divine frequency of grace itself. The vessel is inconsequential. So there are too much of humanity and New Age and the esoteric and the occult concerned with who made us. Well, I don't regard us as this vessel. I don't regard me, I, as this vessel. I regard I as my soul's movement towards grace itself. The vessel has no consequence. I have no interest in these non-earthly being pursuits of understanding the Anunnaki and others. It's interesting, but it's not something to focus on. All these things will become actually clear to one when it's on the passage towards knowing. The Kula Sarupama Sutta, satisfaction and prime in current successes of gifts, fame and reverence or attainments in virtue block the desire and respect for higher attainments. Yes, this is obviously self-explanatory. Okay, next Vaga is the Mahayamaka Vaga, and the first sutta, the Kula Gosinga, on the Buddha's praise for the holy forest life. Well, I would call this Buddha's praise for anyone who is embarking on a spiritual path and journey through prayer, meditation, thought, action, word, or intention, and constant discourse with grace itself. The Kula Tipitaka Sutta, on crossing the stream of Mara, temptation and sorrow, to the further shore of enlightenment. When we always talk to the other side of the river, the further shore, this is the many stones of towards what we call enlightenment, or Nibbana, of releasing oneself from rebirth. Remember, there are many shores. The first shore we must reach, and the river we're crossing now, is the one in the third dimensional human realm, and that is what we're trying to cross. And this is removing oneself from the stream of temptation and sorrow, which is where these stones are crossing this river of temptation and sorrow, of attachment, of craving, of all of the things that the Buddhist text and all other texts are asking you to traverse. It's not just Buddha's text. Remember, many petals unveiled of the lotus flower. There are not just one, there are many. And Buddha's texts or Buddha's teachings of detachment from attachment and craving and suffering and so on and so forth are just one aspect of one of those many petals. Each petal is different for all of us. And how many petals are on this lotus flower for you to unfurl are also unique to yourself. The Kula Sakaka Sutta, on the nature of the self and the five aggregates: form, sensation, perception, formation, and consciousness. So this is what it's talking about: form being body, sensation being touch, taste. This is being our five senses. Perception being that which is conscious, non-conscious, of being, non-being, of just matter, of non-matter, and beyond. The formation of becoming aware of something greater than and becoming on the journey, and consciousness itself, which is really talking about moving towards enlightenment and to the further shore, and the many stones towards that further shore. Okay, the Mahasakaka Sutta, on training the body and training the mind, on cultivation of right concentration, which is called meditation, silence, peace, mindfulness, failure of extreme austerity to achieve enlightenment. Again, this is talking about self-mortification. Do not think that this is required, nor practice it. If anyone asks you to, then I would suggest you need to seek a different path. On the Buddha middle way and the attainment of Nibbana. Maha Asapura Sutta, on the ideal monk. Again, this the text has many passages about what an ideal monk should be, what ideal woman should be, an ideal wife should be, an ideal female disciple should be. I didn't put a lot of time and stock in a lot of this because it was repeated in something less focused in that way. But where it was appropriate, I did pull them out. But there are many. Remember, the text was written in the time it was written. Same manner in which the Upanishads were written many thousands of years earlier. So they had the leaning of the time. Okay, on the ideal monk, on restraint in thought, speech and action. Well, of course, if you're going to be a monk, this is what you're going to have to do. But also this is something that if you're on the spiritual journey and path, you will also have to restrain these things. It's more or less as restraining, it's being aware of and then transforming. Restraining means you're holding back. We don't want to be holding back. We want to recognize and transform over time. On guarding the senses. On eating for the purpose of sustenance. This is just really saying avoid gluttonous behavior. 7 stages of perception for a monk is being solitary. I would call this, when you're on a spiritual journey, you will automatically want to be solitary, have solitude, peace, alone time. You'll spend more time alone than with others. This is where you'll seek expansion and sense of self. This is where you'll understand source, because you will never truly be alone, because grace is with you, the spirit is surrounding you. You understand the true partner of life, and loneliness is dispelled by understanding spirit is there. So this is where solitude will be sought, actually, rather than something of self-mortification. Brahmin, which is becoming on a spirit, joining us, starting and embarking on and persisting on a spiritual journey. Being washed, of course, cleanliness, versed, purged of all things that do not serve us, being noble and saintly in action, word, thought, and intention. But above all of this creates spiritual wisdom. Okay, the Kula Asapura Sutta. On not on the right path is greed, malice, wrath, seeking, revenge seeking, hypocrisy, fraudulence, miserliness, treacherous, deceitful, full of evil desires and harboring wrong views. On how wearing holy robes does not make a holy person. I loved this part. This last sentence of this extract of the passage is the most truthful thing that I could stress to you, and I've said this many times. Rabbis, priests and popes and gurus and those who profess to be the only conduit to source and grace, who stand on pedestals and behind podiums, behind pulpits and on elevated balconies looking down upon the flock. They are not holy. They are not the conduit for you. This passage is always going to be your own. You will see this in the end. How long that takes for one to realize it is up to you. If you follow and worship at the feet of those that wear robes, have names and attachments to them that they give themselves, award themselves crowns, then your journey will just take longer. Wearing holy robes does not make a person holy. Neither does a name, neither does a title or a crown or a building or any such thing. The Kula Kusinga Sutta on Buddha's praise for the holy forest life. Again, it's a repeated passage. Okay, on the next Vaga, the Kula Yamaka Vaga, we've got on 3 types of wrong action, which is killing, theft, sexual misconduct. On 4 types of wrong speech, which is lying, slander, harsh or angry speech, or gossiping. On the 3 types of wrong thought, which is being black-heartedness,
covetous, which means coveting someone's wife and other material things. Wrong doctrine, preaching wrong doctrine and ideas. Ideas really are things that attach thoughts on material things. On 3 types of right action is not killing, not stealing, not having sexual misconduct. On the 4 types of right speech, which are telling the truth, not slandering, gentle in speech and not gossiping. On the 3 types of right thought, which is kind-heartedness, not covetous or envious of others, having the right doctrine, preaching the right things that comes from within to without, and having the right ideas towards transcendental things rather than material attachments. On Vula Vidala Sutta, 4 ways faith in a doctrine is experience. It begins in happiness but ends in suffering. Begins in unhappiness but ends in suffering. Begins in unhappiness and ends in happiness, and begins in happiness and ends in happiness. So this is really talking about how we move ourselves through life, isn't it? It's talking about you can come into life with happiness, but you can end in suffering through the action, words, thoughts and intentions, your soul's garment's transformation to that which is attaching you towards what the Buddhist text regards as suffering, attachment and craving. You can begin with attachment and craving from an early aspect of life, and then continue that through life, which will then end in suffering, of course. You can begin again with the same thing, but evolve into a transcendental nature and end up in happiness through a spiritual path. And you can have a transcendental spiritual nature from the beginning and always continue it through the end, which will always end and begin and end in happiness. The Kuddaka Samyutta Sutta on karma, 4 outcomes of personal conduct. On present happiness followed by future disaster. So this is talking about how karma will affect you. So you can have, again, a spiritual nature and have karmic actions would end in karmic downfall. Have present unhappiness, but then have a karmic debt of some kind it's talking about here, and have good action, word, thought, intentions throughout, transcendental nature, and have non-transcendental nature, and then have a future disaster. In other words, bad karma from beginning to end, starting with none and ending in none, and having good karma throughout. Those who are tightly in the grasp of greed or ill will of ignorance is what is called wrong karma. Okay, the Abhidhamma Sutta. The uneducated, so that which they should not do, and do not know that which they should be done. So in other words, the uneducated, those do not understand what they need to do and don't even understand what they should not do. On karma and the 4 outcomes of personal conduct, which we've already discussed. Vimansaka Sutta, to test claims of attainment of the status of Buddha, purity and passionlessness of the Buddha. Kausambiya Sutta, on the evil of argument and disharmony, on loving kindness, on not engaging in discussion of the Buddha's teaching unless one has attained the state of loving kindness in thought, speech and action, as visible in the external physical sphere and invisible in the internal mental sphere. Self-examination and righteous behavior. It's a great passage to read over and over again to understand that, because this is really encompassing what one must try to become in terms of a being, the expression of your soul in your form. The Brahminam Tankiya Sutta, on the wrong view of eternity or permanence, on the support of Mara, the god of death and evil temptation. So this is talking about the wrong view of how thinking things are permanent in nature, which they are not, that everything that there is an eternity to physicality, which there is not, and obviously the attachment to Mara, which is the attachment to one's own craving to that which leads to temptations. Okay, and the Mahadhamma Sadhana, which I've already gone through. I think this is a repeat of the last slide. Yeah, this is the last slide. Sorry, this is a repeat of the previous slide. This brings us to the end of the Mula Pannasa. And again, transformative spirituality is the only one that actually matters. Make sure it's something that you are integrating, because the second coming is actually you, the Christ, the Buddha, the Krishna, and all the other avatars pass their message on to us already. What humanity needs to understand is already here. It doesn't need another second coming. This is a false doctrine by those waiting for it. It's really just something that they've created to justify what they do. What we need to understand is already out there in physical, and it's already within us in non-physical. We just have to be ready to allow it out and become it. And that actually is not an easy decision to make, and it's not an easy passage to follow. I challenge anyone to truly say they're on it, because it's not an easy one. It's a very difficult passage. It's easier to actually stay in the physical world and involved in ego and have attachment and craving than it is to follow a spiritual path, and that is a guarantee. So if when one is truly on it, they'll testify to that. Solitude will be something you'll seek more and more, as there is no solitude in reality, because you understand that within the spiritual self. Physical companionship is not something you'll seek. It is spiritual being, and integration is something that you'll feel. Okay, I want to say thank you again for listening to this. I truly appreciate your time, and I hope you're enjoying this. Please pass on your comments. I do get them from time to time, and any ideas you might have that you'd like me to follow through, any videos, any scriptures, any ideas that you'd like me to discuss, please pass those on. I do welcome your comments, and let me know if you're enjoying these and if they're helping you on your journey as well. So I want to say thank you again for listening, and God bless you all till next time.